All right, welcome everyone. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Katie Wells. I'm the Director of International Emergency Medicine and Health Equity at the University of Vermont. So today we're going to be talking about building it better, how to cultivate equitable global health partnerships. And if you haven't done the pre-didactic survey, please do, because we have one at the end. We have nothing to disclose. So just quick session agenda orientation. We hope to make this kind of quick so that we can spend the bulk of our time in small groups. And with that, we will do small group work, about 15 minutes, and then we'll have a larger report out with some closing remarks. And really the focus of this session today is really building off of an exercise that was put on back in November from the African Federation of Emergency Medicine. And Dr. Joseph Bonney, the president of AFEM, has a short video that we're going to show you where he talks a bit about AFEM, talks a bit about the Equitable Global Health Partnership workshop that we put on in November, and then we'll discuss a little bit quickly about the AFSEM conference coming up in Botswana in November.
I'm just gonna, for the few people that are coming in now, if you want to just quickly grab the QR code for the pre-survey. We'll get as many people doing that as we can.
My name is Dr. Joseph Bonney, an emergency physician trained and working in Ghana, and the current president of the African Federation for Emergency Medicine. It is my pleasure to be with you today to speak to you about AFEM and some of our campaign towards an equitable global emergency care systems that can be beneficial to all, especially our colleagues in Africa. The African Federation for Emergency Medicine was launched in November 2009, and the aim was to support the development of emergency care in Africa. We currently have members across many regions with our vision to enhance quality emergency care realized by all by driving this through research, education, and policy development. Our work encompasses leadership development, collaborations, advocacy, research, education, and policy, and also trying to build relationships that last long bonds between us and other societies, as we are hoping to do with you. These are all the places we have members and active participants who have helped to make sure that AFEM continues to grow strong to be able to achieve our strong vision. With activities spanning long sectors of our big conferences that happens every other year, our global emergency medicine mentorship programs, young faculty development, and Oxford Handbook for acute and emergency care, a support to delegates program, our active journal, which is growing from strength to strength with an author assist program. We've also been very involved in the development of training materials, including a nursing handbook, which helps initiate nurses who come to the emergency department, an ultrasound bank, which we're hoping to continuously improve, and then also the basic emergency care course, which is one of the flagship programs that AFEM has supported with WHO to promote it across many African continents. Our reach also goes down to our various societies, with our societies having the same vision and aim of AFEM and promoting this at the national level. But we're also recognized and work very strongly with international partners such as USEM, ASEP, IFEM being the mother society, and other related societies such as the World Association for Disaster Emergency Medicine and then the World Council for Academic Emergency Medicine, all with the aim of promoting equity across board. This is a snapshot of some of our activities from 2022 till date, looking at our journal that has an increasing impact factor of 1.45 now. Our last conference that was held in Ghana with over 400 participants from 35 different countries. Our Nursing Francophone Students Council, Delta, which is our residence group, and pre-hospital groups with many activities including webinars, training, and workshops. Our research course, for which we have developed and piloted and run 2 courses so far. For basic emergency care, the numbers just speak for itself, with a total of 381 courses that have been run, along with mass casualty management, community first aid courses, and a strong interaction with the WHO moving forward. Our next conference is happening, and I will tell you more about this just in a minute. But to tell you about our campaign on equitable global emergency care, we are committed to unpacking global emergency equity in emergency care and identifying how AFEM can support and advocate for equitable partnerships towards the strengthening of emergency care in Africa. For this, our first step was to run an equitable partnership workshop last year in November, and this was to help us build our relationships and understand where are the barriers, where are the enablers, and how can we look at possible solutions to do this. From this, we were able to come up with a few themes of community empowerment and engagement, breaking down the communication barriers, addressing the power imbalance, sustainable and inclusive infrastructure development, ethical and accountable practices, decolonialism of global health, flexible adaptation of the partnerships. But also, we did not forget to look at sustainable financial structures and long-term engagements and sustainability planning, meaning that from day one, we need to have the understanding that we are working together to solve the problem that is pertinent to the person in Africa for Africans with the support from the Global North. With this, I'd like to invite you to our up-and-coming conference, which is the African Conference on Emergency Medicine, which will be happening from the 6th to the 8th of November. At this conference, we will have a big discussion on equity, a big discussion on global health for emergency care that is equitable for everybody. And this will be happening from the 6th to the 8th of November in Gaborone in Botswana. We're looking forward to see you there. This 2 QR codes gives you a photo picture of our last conference, which will excite you to be able to join us, and our annual report for 2023 to show you all the good work that we have been doing. But in order for you to show your support, and show your support now, we ask you to help support the delegates attend our conference coming up. AFEM is very dedicated in improving emergency care in Africa, but in a very equitable way to ensure that all partners get the best benefits out of the relationships that we're able to build. Thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to seeing you all in November and wishing you a great meeting. Thank you.
So we're so thankful to Dr. Bonnie, AFEM, Dr. Lauren King, Dr. Heike Hittold for support. Their ideas and our working together in November to build the workshop really kind of set the stage for this next phase to be able to do here at SAEM. And so with that, we'd love to start kind of getting into sort of the meat of what this session is going to be about.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Turgeon. I'm a second-year resident at Boston Medical Center. I was fortunate enough to be at this event that happened in November, and we're really excited to have you here today to continue that conversation from a high-income country perspective. We just wanted to start out with some community agreements. We are doing a little bit of a non-traditional didactic in that you will be in small groups, and so we will be having what can be sometimes difficult discussions. And so I'd like you to just read on the screen some of the aspects of the conversation agreements that you will be upheld to in these small groups. And it's just to say that this is a conversation about equity, and that in our place right now in a high-income country, we hold a lot of power. But in each space, in the different contexts that we work, we hold a varying level of power and privilege. So just be mindful of sort of where you are at today, and we invite you to have a very vulnerable, open, and honest discussion. So we will break up into about 6 small groups. The small group topics are based on the consensus document that came out of that AFEM workshop that happened in November, as Dr. Bonnie had mentioned in the video. We will have a facilitator or multiple facilitators in each group, and we'll be helping guide the discussion. And then after about 10 to 15 minutes, we'll come back as a large group and have a further discussion and report out. So the small group topics are contractual clarity and establishment of equitable MOUs, ethics practices, and Dr. Stephanie Garburn will be helping facilitate that. The next is creating sustainable and transparent funding models, and Dr. Catalina Gonzalez-Marquez will be with that group. Next is equitable research prioritization, research capacity building, and implementation, and Dr. Shama Patel and Anna Fang will be with that group. Next, we have educational capacity building and community empowerment. Myself will be with that group. We have long-term commitments, sustainability, and academic promotion, and Dr. Katie Wells will be leading that group. And last, advocacy and policy influence, and Dr. Vinay Kampalath will be with that group. And so the next steps are going to be, even though we don't have tables, we're gonna get comfortable. We would ask that, I think we have probably maybe 6 to 7 people per group, and we'll have our facilitators kind of go throughout the room, and we ask that you go to a topic area that you find interesting to you. And if we need to spread out people, we'll kindly ask you to move to a different group.
All right, so unfortunately, we are going to have to come back together for the report out. You can stay in your groups if you want, and we'll just run microphones. All right, so we do ask that everyone in the group has a report out person. We're trying to have it not be the facilitators, if possible. And then I just want to say, too, we know this was a really short amount of time, but what we're hoping for is that this is the start of a conversation around these topic areas. All right. Let me try. Nikki, are you ready? Let's start with this group. Who's going to be the report out person? Okay, great.
Hi, everyone. I kind of got voluntold as the resident as part of this group. It's nice to meet all of you. I'm Carly Polson. I have the, I don't want to stand up, but I will. All right. Hi, all. So I have the great pleasure of being one of Nicole Turgeon's colleagues over at BMC. So I happily took pages and pages of notes on our discussion over here, but I'll keep it brief because the session is only 50 minutes long. But we had a really good discussion mainly around the creation and generation of sort of MOUs and sort of what that looks like across varying institutions that people are a part of. I think some of the highlights of our discussion involved the idea between a lot of the MOUs that are generated to create these partnerships in between different institutions sort of across oceans and what have you are very, very Western central. A lot of them sort of center around the American legislative system, the American legal practice, the American standard of medicine, and that sort of shapes things in a way that is potentially inequitable to the partner countries. You know, because a lot of the things that are highlighted are specific laws that have to do with HIPAA, that have to do with compliance in that regard. And then talking about sort of the purpose of these partnerships, the way that they're normally being used in a lot of ways have more to do with sort of the CYA aspect of medicine. But we sort of had a really good discussion about the ways that they could potentially be used as a helpful tool, you know, as a way to sort of establish the common ground findings, as a way to make your partnerships equal, equitable, and keeping the communities at large sort of at the center of these discussions. And I think one really interesting thing we talked about was potentially providing, you know, other partnership places, third-party legal systems in order for them to be able to use to help screen these documents that may be sort of inequitable otherwise. But I think those are most of the highlights. Unless anyone else wants to add anything, I will happily yield the microphone to another group.
And we want this to be interactive too. I know we kind of have a short amount of time, but if there are ideas that come up for you, even if you weren't in this topic area, please feel free just to shout them out. All right, let's go to this group.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alejandro. Same as Carly. We have a bunch of people here working with Nikki who are our note takers. Our group here was talking about sustainable and transparent funding models, and there was 3 main questions that we kind of went over that I'll get to in a row. The first one was, what are the current barriers to equity in this area in creating sustainable and transparent funding models? And one of the main things that we ended up talking about was, where is the money coming from? Who are the people that are kind of holding the purse strings? Who are the people that are funding some of these projects? And once they are identified, do they even want equity? Or like, what is the kind of, why are they funding this? What's their bottom line? Is this something where they kind of want to just go ahead and support, provide some more equity, or is there something else that the people providing the funding are really kind of looking for? Other things we talked about are things like process with writing grants or applying for grants. Some barriers can kind of be with just institutions. Some institutions just do this a lot more often. So they're just a lot better at it, just a lot more used to it, a lot more resources to get things done and try to get things approved versus trying to do this through an institution that maybe isn't as used to it. And then just in general, just who gets to apply for some of this funding. Not everybody gets to apply for it. Where is this funding coming from? Do you have help? All that kind of stuff. Just a bunch of different barriers or obstacles that people have to jump through to be able to even get some of this money to begin with. The second question, it was just what does an ideal situation look like? So it was kind of phrased in a perfect world without any barriers, what does this sustainable and transparent model kind of look like? And we had a bunch of ideas, but just to keep it short, it was basically something that would be kind of recurrent, something where the people getting the funding are the ones who help or the ones who are determining where the money is going to go, that is not directed by the people that are giving the money. So something that is kind of recurrent, something that is enough kind of what the people are asking for the money, it's enough to cover what they need, and the people receiving the funding are the ones who kind of are able to disperse it and identify where it's going to go. And the last one that we talked about were what solutions can we come up with to create a more equitable system in funding. Some of the things we talked about were we kind of ended on a good topic about the difference between equity and equality, where you're going to have these two groups, the funders and those receiving the funding, and having, we were talking about the example of the grant writing and writing publishing and stuff like that, where who's first author, who's not, who will benefit more from being first author versus not being first author, and just being really intentional about the difference of both the equity and equality when trying to create some of these systems. I don't know if there's anything else anybody else wanted to talk about. Okay. There you go.
Great job. And also, if you are not a facilitator and you took notes and you wouldn't mind sharing those with us, that would be great. We'll give you some contact information at the end. Awesome. All right. How about this group?
I was taking notes so I can speak for the group and others can chime in as necessary. I'm Anna Fang, part of this presentation, and yeah, our topic was on equitable research prioritization as well as research capacity building and implementation. Very briefly on the barriers, because I think more ideally we focus on sort of the ideal scenario. We talked about a couple different levels of barriers. On the personal level, oftentimes our lower middle income country partners are like sort of overburdened with responsibility, and there may also be sort of interactions between the high income countries and lower middle income countries, sort of cultural sensitivity or language barriers. And then on institution or national level, oftentimes the funding is sort of, the rules are dictated by the higher income country. And so we even talked about sort of percentage differences in terms of if funding is going to someone who applied for a grant from a higher income country versus a lower income country. And then also that many countries have different data sharing practices. So certain grants here may require data to be shared when that data in that country, the country does not want that data to be shared, and how those interactions sort of are, there's a big power differential there. In terms of the ideal scenario, we talked a lot. I think the main theme was about sort of having a lot of conversations up front, identifying the priorities of our lower middle income country partners, what is actually beneficial or valuable to them as opposed to what we might assume would be of interest. Sort of generating capacity, not just from our partners directly, but considering building teams that have different skill sets from within the country as well. And then also, I think, advocating for, to come over, hopefully in the future, with grants that have a lot of rules, seeing if we can advocate for either more funding to be allocated to the lower income country partners, or sort of taking away some of those barriers that keep this power differential in place. Anything else to add?
Great job. All right, this group.
everyone. My name is Sam Lewis. I'm a second-year emergency medicine resident at University of Washington. I was also gladly volunteered by Vinay to present for our group. So our group focused on advocacy and policy, and we discussed a lot of the similar themes that the other groups have talked about. But we also started off on barriers, and some of the barriers that we talked about were, particularly in the advocacy and policy sphere, that individuals from high-income countries often preferentially have a seat at the table, despite obviously not knowing the priorities of individuals who are actually on the ground and experiencing that, and so trying to kind of flatten that power differential. And then we talked a lot about bilateral partnerships and how, in general, there's been a move towards having them be more truly bilateral partnerships, but that there still are very different levels of capacity to practice clinically across the world, and also to come and do observerships or research positions, and that those truly aren't bilateral and equal. So in terms of an ideal situation, we had a few different ideas. So trying to really prioritize creating those more bilateral partnerships and creating space for professorships or research positions here in the US for our partners globally. And then also trying to kind of lower that barrier for individuals to come practice clinically. And we talked about how oftentimes it's more of an observership, even though they might be much more clinically practiced than us, and trying to make that a little bit more equal as well. So like credentialing and trying to address that. We also talked about making open access literature so that the inequities in terms of access to information can be evened out. And then we talked a little bit towards the end about, a lot of this is driven by money, unfortunately, and so trying to change the value proposition at our local institutions so that these are probably not going to be, money-earning propositions, but to try to emphasize the other value aspects of these partnerships so that it can be a lot more equal. Anything else you guys want to add? Okay, great.
Great job. All right, I think we're doing okay on time. All right, this group. I didn't actually take notes, but I'm going to look at hers. I'm Claire, and we were the education, thank you, capacity building and community empowerment. I think we hit a lot of the same topics as a lot of the groups did. And I think one of the things barrier-wise that we talked about is not only having funding and protected time for ourselves to try and do these projects, but also having funding and protected time for our partners, because we really want it to be a partnership where everything is coming from the host institution, but a lot of times we're burdening our host institutions by coming and doing the education, even though it's something that is agreed upon and wanted. Similarly, having funding for machinery if you're doing ultrasound things. I know we do EKG, and so what do you do when something breaks down, and have you had good in-country processes for that? And for community empowerment, again, making sure that we're involving them early and not sort of after we've made some mistakes, which happens and is okay too, but making sure that we're doing things that are sort of tailored to the communities that we're working in. Ideally, we want investments into what we're doing, not necessarily based off of what the general consensus of what is a profitable thing, but something that is actually just meaningful, and getting investment from higher up within our own institutions, but hopefully politically as well, so that we're able to do more equitable exchanges, and having people come, learners come into our institutions as well and have equal access to things and have similar experiences. And that was the highlights. Great. Yeah. All right, last but not least.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Derek Lubetkin, part of the Coastal Maine Global Health Fellowship, and we talked about long-term commitments, sustainability, and academic promotion. And a few of the ideas we really discussed were making sure that we spend enough time truly enough time with our partner organizations to get as good of an understanding of the context, both politically and culturally and academically and clinically, which is hard to do when you only have a brief time to go visit a place or to build those connections. So trying to work to have longer time periods to understand the context where you're working, making sure that you involve multiple partnerships and collaborations from the very beginning, whether that's municipal government, state, federal government, Ministry of Health, and then the academic institutions. If you can try to work on having like buy-in and strong relationships with all of those key stakeholders and players from the beginning, then you'll have scalability and be able to, build upon the projects that you're starting. And along that line as well is we all talked about, the ultimate goal in a lot of global health projects is planned obsolescence, where, if we keep going back doing the same thing every time, that's probably not a sign of a successful program. So working on, what's the first phase? How do we build on that with our partners to expand? And whether that's through Ministry of Health support or institutional support through trainer-the-trainer programs. And then academic promotion, one thing we really talked about, which is maybe our only specific actionable plan we had, but is talking a lot about this idea of you need first or last author for promotion's sakes, where you're working with often a lot of partners at whatever the local institutions where you're working, and this idea that we should always be from our big academic centers the first or last author really isn't in line with kind of what our ethos should be of the real equitable nature of our relationships. So whether that's through SAEM having some sort of statement, whether that's like chair organizations coming together stating that, in the space where we're working, this idea of needing first or last authorship for promotion isn't really in line with what we're trying to do. So that's something that we could push for, and maybe that would help provide more support for whatever institutions we're working at to make it change. Certainly, anything? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, do we have any chairs in the room? I think I see one back there. My chair, Ramsey Harrington, thanks for being here, bud. But one of the things that I would say came up also a lot just to add in our group is, when we're thinking about academic promotion, are there opportunities for us to really push on SAEM to get behind some promotion criteria that really kind of help support more equity in the global health space? And could we push on the chairs group to endorse that as well? So that was another idea that was kind of brought up from our group. All right, so I think we are running out of time. Just a quick thanks to our partners in the build of this didactic. And then if you will, please, just like you did the pre-survey, please, please, please participate in the post. And as we mentioned, this is just the first of many steps, we hope, in this area in conversation with you all. Please reach out. So I'll leave that up for just a second. I'm going to give you the contact information for all of us, all of the facilitators in the group today. Please reach out if you have any questions, if you want to be involved in this work going forward. We'll certainly send out all of the information that we collected today through the GMA listserv. So if you're not a member of GMA yet, please join. And we will also have a slide for the meeting tomorrow. And if you've been interested in GMA and haven't been to GMA before, please come tomorrow, 1 to 2:50? 1 to 2:50. All right. Please come join us tomorrow. And happy hour tonight.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
We're in downtown Phoenix, 10 minutes away.
All right, again, please screenshot this if you want. These are our contact information, our email. If you don't have those already, please reach out to us. And the post survey again, just to hang. And then there's the GMA meeting tomorrow. So please join if you are not a member yet. And thank you all so much for coming and for your participation. Really appreciate it.